Workflow for me is the first citizen, and then the agent comes as the second layer.
Yeah.
If you go even deeper, then there's data that it's sitting on that the agent's going to sit on top to basically drive the logic.
What is the most important thing to keep in mind when you're designing and building like an agentic system?
I think the first thing that I always kind of emphasize is understand what you're trying to solve, like deeply, because right now there's a lot of tendency of, oh, we can agentify that, we can agentify this, but I think that's just jumping to the tool without having figured out the problem set very well.
Tony Kipkemboi, engineering content creator known as the How-To Guy on YouTube, where he teaches builders how to design automation and agent systems. He grew up in Kaptagat, Kenya, hometown of world-class marathon runners, came to the US on a running scholarship, served 7 years in the US Army, including assisting with frontline COVID research, pivoted into tech, and is now at Guild closing the AI talent gap. In our discussion, we talk about designing agentic systems that actually work, why obsession is the real career compass, and how to stay grounded when the AI tools never stop shipping.
The way I figure out what I enjoy right now, and I feel like this is what I want to pursue, is the fact that even if I'm not working, I'm still living my phone. If you go to like the past 10 searches for the last 10 days, is something that is involved in my work. Like I'm obsessed with it. Like my social media feed, who I follow is basically that. Every conversation I have with even my friends when I go out, it's basically that. So it's like I'm living in that obsession to the point where, sometimes my wife is like, "Do you ever have an off day, like in your mind?" I'm like, my off days when I'm asleep, like my brain is shut down. Otherwise, it's like I'm thinking about these things even when I'm just sitting. It's still thinking. It's just.
Before we go deep in this conversation, ask if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. If you're on a podcast app, please follow. This conversation is one of many that are shaping a book I'm writing on how we find meaning as we go deeper into the automation and intelligence era. It's called Practice Ground, and the book is coming later this year, 2026. Don't miss it. Now, back to our interview. Tony Kipkemboi, thank you for joining Practice Ground podcast today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm very, very grateful for your time. And just to give a little intro about yourself, you're an AI engineer and content creator. On YouTube, you're known as the How-To Guy, where you teach technical content on building AI automation and agent systems. You've worked at a variety of places, Crew AI, which I kind of worked with a lot when I was at Deep Learning AI. Snowflake, I think I saw Bloomberg somewhere. And you're now at Guild, which is very interesting what they're doing in terms of trying to upskill talent and close that talent gap. In general, you're passionate about open source, AI agents, and developer education. I think what I really value in the space is when I see people that are, taking technical, will I say, knowledge or technical things and try to translate it in a very simple, accessible way so that a lot of people can get in, but also holding that technical clarity because, the hardcore engineers or hardcore technical people are very ready to call you out if you're not,
Yes.
keeping it 100. So I know it's a very challenging thing that you do daily. In terms of like AI and agents, you've worked at one of the places that I felt was the place where, building AI agents comes top of the mind to me, at least. Crew AI, right?
Yeah.
Building a crew. I spent some time with Zhao himself, very passionate guy.
Yes.
The AI and agents, they just keep improving, right? And we're seeing them improve a lot of stuff that can be done based on all like you've seen in the industry, what you've built. You've been around this for a long time, educating people. What is the most important thing to keep in mind when you're designing and building like an agentic system?
Yeah. Great first question to begin with. You mentioned Joao there. Yeah, he's solid guy. Love
Yeah.
working for him. So really, when I think about how to build agentic systems and how to think about that, mostly even within the company right now at Guild and some of the companies that I spoke to previously at Crew that were trying to build agents, I think the first thing that I always kind of emphasize is understand what you're trying to solve, like deeply, because right now there's a lot of tendency of, oh, we can agentify that. We can agentify this. But I think that's just jumping to the tool without having figured out the problem set very well. Because sometimes most of these problems don't even need agentic solutions at all. So I always go back and say, if you can map out your entire process, like how a human would do it manually, and then figure out, okay, how much constraint should I put on each of those nodes of what somebody would usually do, then that would help you map the agentic framework on top of, or the agent system on top of that workflow. So
Mm-hmm.
workflow for me is the first citizen, and then the agent comes as the second layer.
Yeah.
If you go even deeper, then there's data that it's sitting on, that the agent's going to sit on top to basically drive the logic. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and even to go a bit deeper on that, currently when I joined Guild, the first thing that I, during the interview and even talking to folks, the thing that comes to mind, and it's not only a Guild thing or a this company thing, I think it's a universal thing for most companies. Most of these automations and AI automations and agentic automations that companies are going to build, for me, I think it's going to act as a magnifying glass to their data infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the data was not built to be consumed by agents. They were built for humans. So they're in silos. Some of them, like, we have data in Snowflake, we have data in Databricks, all these other different systems. And then exactly. So how do you have all of them in one semantic layer where the agent can then consume them without having to go like learn how this system is structured, this other system is structured? And of course, you've seen companies probably that are trying to solve that problem, like Glean.
Yeah.
They connect all the data, they have that layer, and then the agent can search on top. So
Mm-hmm.
the way I think about it, I think from those fundamentals first, and then we kind of build out from there. And then, of course,
Yeah.
iterations and improving it. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. I think, one thing I also learned, a big thing I learned was a lot of people want to build these things, want to get right into it, but there's so much in terms of that data layer, in terms of data engineering that needs to be done to make sure that the data is served properly before you even get into all these, any fancy thing on the top, in the application layer or the agentic layer. How do you distinguish between a question or a prompt or a project that's worth pursuing, right? Or one that is just merely solvable. Like, let me give you an example. So I remember while I was at Deep Learning AI, I remember talking to one of the curriculum developers, and I was like, oh man, I want to use an agent I don't know what I was trying to do. I was trying to build something that can help with sorting the courses, right? And I talked about this whole elaborate way of, an agent to read this and this and that. And the guy, older engineer, was like, I think you could just like do some clustering, right? And I was like, clustering. Then I had to go back and start learning even more the foundational, like some of these deep learning algorithms, right? Supervised, unsupervised learning, all that kind of stuff. And what I was doing was what I was trying to do was I was trying to make it way more complex than what could easily just be solved, right? So when do you distinguish between, a problem that's worth pursuing where you can automate it and one that you're just like, let's just solve it with, let's just use a calculator to solve this one.
Yes, I think I face that every day because currently I'm at a good position at the company where everybody comes to me. Either I discover the problem or something that needs to be automated, but usually it's the opposite. Everybody, because my customers are my internal employees. How can I make you much faster, more productive within your
Hmm?
role? So everybody comes to me. Hey, I have this process. I recorded a video of how I do it manually. Can you help me automate this? And usually comes in different flavors, right? It's whatever they think could be automated. I have to be the filter of looking at the problem, understanding, and then deciding this is going to be a agentic solution.
Yeah.
This is just going to be a Python script. And the goal is to get to a point where I let people also self-serve. For things that maybe just require a script, you don't need to come to me anymore. Fire up Replit, because we have a Replit license, for example. Build it yourself using the agent there, and then just deploy it, and then you can use it for your own personal needs, right? You don't even need to know how to code. So the way I think about it is going back to the same problem set. I tell you to really break down how you do it manually. And that's why I love video recordings of somebody doing it manually, because it really helps. Like, they will miss some stuff when they're explaining, because for you, it feels innate.
Exactly.
You're used to doing it. You're like, I just do this like this. But when you're building these systems, it's like you really, really have to dial into the point. Okay, I click here, I go here, I do this because of this. Because otherwise, you're going to meet a small edge case, and people are so not forgiving when AI makes a problem versus a human. If somebody makes a problem, they'll be like, "All right, dude, you get it right next time."
Yep.
But an agent does everything 9 things right and fails one. Is like, this stuff is
Yeah,
horrible. We're not going to touch it
throw it out.
anymore.
Yep.
Yes. So those things makes it very important to really understand who I'm building for and why I'm building it. and then letting them test it over time and let me iterate. So to some extent, the way I pitch to them once I've built the solution for them is, this is the worst it's going to be. Just test it. It's going to fail. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
Just tell me, give me the feedback. I'm going to record some, but give me the feedback of what you think, how things should go. Basically, give me the evals of how this thing should work. And then I make it better for you and tune it. And I think going with that mindset helps them a little bit more, not be so defensive and say, oh, okay, this thing just doesn't work on the first fail. But going back to the problem set, the way I distinguish between even a script and an agentic kind of workflow that I want to pursue is, if this system is going to touch a lot of data sources and it needs to have extra logic, for example, there's a function maybe calling queries from Snowflake, another one using an MCP from this other server to get data from it. And then there's, within each of those spots, there needs to be some form of thinking or transformation that needs to happen to synthesize a final answer. That's when I think, okay, we kind of need an agent here, because each of those nodes is going to have a thinking, which basically an LLM in it, that's going to decide what happens there. Of course, and I add guardrails within each of those nodes. But if a problem is like, for example, I just want to be able to get data from Snowflake, remove this column, and then put it in a spreadsheet and then send it to somebody else. That doesn't need an agent.
Yeah.
Put a script, clean it, put it out. But if the problem is a bit deterministic, depending on what the inputs are, things could go either way, and there's so many edge cases, then I would put an agent, but then put guardrails on top of that and observability. Yeah.
Man, Tony, you're touching on so many things that even for me, that I learned over the past year or two, is even having like this mental model of how the thing should be built, right? People just want to jump in and then they don't think about guardrails in terms of, do you want your personal PII or, your personal identifiable information to be, shared, right? So you're sharing it with this large language model, or you don't want it to say explicit stuff, right? So when you're using it, or the other part, so, okay, yes, you put in a guardrail, you can't put the constraints, but the other part is evaluation, right? Where, as you said, because it's probability, every time you use it, it gives you sort of gives you a different response. How do you build like a systematic way of evaluating, was that response good enough, right? Without thinking about those things, it's very easy to just want to jump in and just say, oh, I saw like someone did something on YouTube, I think I can build it myself, without thinking about all the steps you have to do to actually get it to a actually very good states, right? For you to be able to keep improving the product or the solution. Do you, I'm sure you see this, but now that you're working in an organization where you have to, like, as you said, your customers are your internal stakeholders, do you always have to educate them about all these steps, or do some of them already know about this step?
Yeah. I think it's a continuous process. For me, it really helps for me, I think, at my current role where I'm being a builder. But then on top of that, I'm also an educator in a sense as well. And I think it's just a perfect fit for me because I was in DevRel and that was my job. And then now I'm not doing, the current role is not purely DevRel. It's really the building aspect of it. But the DevRel skills are directly impacting what I'm doing on a day-to-day. It makes me even better at my job. So for most folks, they come to me first with a problem solution. Hey, I want this thing to be solved. So right off the bat, I'm more of a PM because I have to look at their problem, ask them, hey, I give them templates of a PRD, for example. They use that. They just put it on Claude as a skill and sell it. Hey, this is my problem. They're gonna describe it, transcribe. The Claude skills takes that and populates a PRD template that I gave them. And then when the PRD gets to me, I review it and tell them, hey, could you add more examples of like, this is a question that you would typically ask. This is the process of things, how it would happen. And this is the final answer of what it looks like. And give me a real example so long as I'm privy to the data. And then from that, I already have my first eval data set right there. So when I build it, I directly test it against those evals directly and see, okay, I think the system is heading to the right direction. So by the time I give it to them, it's giving them at least what they expect off the bat, and then improve beyond that. I have to, just throughout that process, that's already training them and telling them, this is what I expect. This is kind of what things look like. And through that process, they are learning also how to think like I would think. So it's like, I'm sharing my mental models with them. So I like to think of that as just like, I'm just scaling the knowledge that's out there already, propagating to them, because it will come back to me in a better format eventually, because I'm going to expect them to come up with more workflows. And over time, it's like I'm doing reinforcement learning on them as well as humans. So the PRD should be getting better eventually, right? And my job gets much more easier in terms of just building. So I think those are very And sometimes I just even, once I build a thing, I record a loom and share it with them, explaining all the technical details. I start first with like eye overview. This is a UI, this is what it does. And if somebody just benefits from the first 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and they're like, I'm good, I don't want to know the technicals, great. If they want to dive into the technicals, depending on their domain, there's breadth they can jump into directly within that, whatever, 20-minute video. So I found that very useful for me and also for everybody in the company as well.
Okay, nice, nice. So yeah, just to do a quick reverse, right? You're where you're at now. You're a builder. You're an educator. It's similar to I know myself. I'll talk about I'm where I'm at now. I never envisioned that when I was growing up, when I was in Lagos, right? Growing up, I never envisioned this like 20, 22 years afterwards, right? So that's a quick reverse. Like, can you tell me how you got into this all the way back from, Kenya? How, if you could, like just a little bit of that journey on how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah. Oof. Sometimes I've had a lot of people tell me, you need to write a book,
Yeah.
just about the journey. It's,
Hey, come join me. Come join me.
yes, I need to learn some tips from you, on how to do this. So my journey begins in Eldoret, Kenya, and this is in 2010 December. I had just graduated high school, and like most African schools, you go to high school, you study. There's no multiple choice, of course. Like you really have to really put in the effort. And after graduation, there's a certain percentage of people that get selected to go to uni. The government kind of pays for that, and then for the rest of you, and they pick your major for you, of course, right? So, and then the rest of you, either you have a rich family or you just go back to farming.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in the rural Kenya, northwestern part of Kenya. So I was a farm boy, just
What's the name
taking
of
care
the What's the name of the area or the name of the area?
of this
Yeah,
small city. It's called Kaptagat. For the people in the running world, you hear Kaptagat, it like bells go off.
I
This is where
see.
if you see any long distance runners, they're from there. So I grew up. Most of those people that you see out there are people I either trained with on a daily basis, or they live close to me. They're neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
So names
Were
like
you also
Kipchoge.
running? Were you also training?
No, no. So the funny part is not initially, not initially. So the story is very long. So
Okay.
initially in Kenya, I think here in the US is different. Athletes are like revered. People loved athletes here. Back at home, at least the sentiment has changed a little bit. But growing up, if you went to athletics and started running, and because Kenyans are mostly known for that. If you went to running, they would usually the sentiment was you're not good at school, so you decided to go for this thing because you got to make money somehow, right? And so most of them graduated from high school and never went beyond that and just went to running straight away. Some of them didn't even go to high school; they just started running because it gets you out there, it gets you making money faster. It's hard, but that's kind of the thing is.
Mm-hmm.
But the tribe I come from is called Kalenjin, and so if you look at my last name is Kip. If you also go and look up most marathon runners, most Kenyan athletes, they have a Kip in their name, Kipchoge. So
Okay.
it's a tribe.
Yeah.
It's mostly one tribe that produce a lot of runners. Other tribes also have runners, but most of the long distance runners are from the Kalenjin tribe. So that my journey started there. I graduated high school, and like every other person, limited opportunities in Kenya. I figure I got to do something with my life. I think there's a chance to go to the US, and the way is you start running because coaches come from the US and they come
Yep.
recruit high schoolers, just finish high school, to come run for NCAA here in the US, and they give you full scholarship. I was like, oh, that sounds like a good plan. There is a lot of camps that are within my area because just runners everywhere. So I was like, I'm gonna join one of them, and I'm gonna study for the SATs and take that and apply to colleges. And then when the scouts come, I go run at the track, compete with like 100 people on a dirt track. They pick maybe top 10. You go to the embassy, try your luck because the embassy is also a fluke, depending on how you get it or not.
Mm.
So
To-
yes, yeah, you know how it is. So I got lucky in 2011 December. I went on. Actually, it was the 24th, which is almost a day from today. Kind of like time reference. Yeah, and I went. I got a visa, and January 8th, I was in Georgia in college. And since then, decided to come do biology. I majored in biology while in that small college called Young Harris College. And then a year in, I transferred to Grambling State in Louisiana University. And I got recruited there for NCAA Division One. Ran cross country there as well. And my life has been more of like getting recruited a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So at Grambling, I spent a year. So my junior year, I got recruited by the Army because they were taking people with languages, the MAVNI program.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I don't
Uh-huh.
know if you're familiar with it. Yeah, it's a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
military.
I know
Yeah,
some like a few Nigerian friends that have
that went through
done.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I have some friends too that we joined together that are from all the different countries in Africa
Yeah,
mostly.
yeah,
So So we joined that in 2014. Went to basic training in Fort Sill, Oklahoma in the summer. It was too hot for life. One times. Graduated there, went to San Antonio, did a medical program. On top of being a soldier, you have to have this other extra job, MOS, military occupation specialty. So mine was medical laboratory technology, which was kind of closest thing to what I was majoring in, which is still in kind of medicine space. And after that, got stationed in one of the Army hospitals and worked as a medical lab tech. So if you go to the doctor, I would be the guy taking your blood, taking it back, measuring the samples, sending the results to the doctor. So rotated through a bunch of chemistry, urinalysis, microbiology, hematology, all those cool stuff. And the last 3 years of that, so I served 7 years. The last 3 of that, I relocated to Maryland, and the Army has a research lab here in Maryland for infectious diseases. And at that point, I was thinking, I want to go to medical school, but at the same time, I don't know. After shadowing some doctors in Virginia, where I was stationed, I was like, maybe this is not the life of. I don't think being a doctor is my thing now. Yeah. Like, I loved it, but then after watching the doctors all the time, I was like, oof, I don't even want to do that anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Doctors are
my
doctors.
yeah, they're special. I gotta give him the props for that. I think the lifestyle didn't. I just didn't feel like I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, maybe I can go to research then. Go to do a PhD program in biology, microbiology, or something. So I came to the research facility here. It's called USAMRIID, U.S. Army Research Institute of Infectious Diseases. They're mostly known for some. If you look up the Hot Zone movie or something, it's based off that stuff with
Okay.
anthrax back in the day. This just have some history that could be good or bad depending on how you look at it. So came there, and this was the height of COVID. So 2019, I got stationed there, and my time there, it was very coincidental when COVID happened. So COVID broke out. One of the first few samples of the virus was sent to University of Washington in Washington State, and we got one of those early samples in USAMRIID, and our job was to aliquot each of those samples and distributed within all the labs within the country so that they can start working on the vaccines. And I was like in the middle of that. So just every day when people were quarantined, I was not on quarantine. It was just like, go reconstitute this, let's get them out, let's ship them out. So it's fun times as well. And I worked in different departments. I worked in aerobiology, which was pretty unique by itself. We would measure the breathing capacity of whatever animal model we were testing on. And we would then expose it to the agents that we were exposing it to and let it breathe it. And then another team would monitor it and see how that affected the animal over a long time. And then that would model into the human clinical trials at the end of the day too. And after that, I also worked in genomics, which is where I started picking up programming, coincidentally. And this was in 2020, actually. I wrote my first Hello World in April. I still have that on my GitHub. But I got interested. I was like, I do most of the stuff on the wet lab side of genomics. Like I'll run the assays and they would come take the data. And I was wondering, they're bioinformaticians. And I was like, what do you guys go do back there with all this data? They were like, you want to come see? I was like, cool, yeah. So I went and saw it, and it was just a bunch of Python on the screen. I was like, okay, looks complicated. And they were like, you interested in it? Here's a book, Python for Dummies. And I took it, read it at home, and I was like, Code Academy it is. I spent in Code Academy like a couple of weeks, and I got hooked. I was like, this is what I want to do when I get out. So I got out in 2021. So 2020 to 2021 was my window to get something happen and switch my career entirely. So I spent most of my nights really, and my wife, I had one kid at that point, and I would come home, we would just hang out. As soon as they go to bed, I was up until maybe about 3 in the morning, and then I would wake up an hour later, go to morning practice for the Army, and then go to work. And that became a cycle for a couple of weeks. It was like pure dedication, because I was like, I'm getting out of the Army, I don't have much time, I gotta make something happen, because I don't want to go work at a lab when I get out. And the good thing with the Army, they have that last 6 months of your service where you can go intern at whatever company to help you transition out of the Army, because it's a hard transition. And I started applying to jobs, and most of them were like, well, you're great at what you do, but you don't have any technical experience working in tech. You just have personal projects, you don't have schooling. So it's great, but we can't even offer you an internship. So at that point, I was like, okay, maybe I need to enroll in a college for folks to take me a bit seriously. So I ended up finding a program from University of Pennsylvania. They had just started their master's in computer information technology, and they were taking in non-traditional students. I applied, got in, and from then it just became history. Got some internship at Merck, the biopharma, did data engineering there. And then I got out in 21, went to Bloomberg in New York. That was wild, just coming off the Army and straight into that. It was also a very good learning curve. So I did some data analysis there with financial data and just working with them.
Yeah, you have a lot of data.
Yeah, you have a lot of data, a lot of 600 billion ticks in a day. So that was fun. And then this was also during the height of COVID. So family didn't really love the vibe of New York, New Jersey. And they were like, man, we don't want to, concrete blocks. Kids are used to being outside. And then it's just stressful. So we ended up moving back to Virginia. And I moved to Virginia, took a job with Booz Allen as a contractor there, doing data engineering as well. And then after that, I was doing stuff on YouTube. So since I'm mostly self-taught, I would learn something and then I would record a video and post it.
Mm-hmm.
And that just became a thing. And eventually I was like, well, I'm just going to keep doing this because it's fun.
Yeah.
So I was doing stuff with Streamlit, and a role popped up with Streamlit for developer advocate, and they had just been acquired by Snowflake at that, like I think a month in. And I got in and started working with awesome folks like Chinen and some of my awesome managers there. The team was really awesome. And from there, was there for almost 2 years. It was awesome time working there. And this is also when AI started becoming, at least generative AI started becoming really prevalent. And I was doing a lot of stuff with generative AI at Streamlit already. So I ended up interviewing Joao. He had just built a package. I think it was about 1,000 stars. It was so early, like nobody was talking about agents then. So I brought him on. I interviewed him, and then we just kept in touch. And when it was time, I just told him, dude, I'm looking to switch to go fully into AI space. And this was in 2024. And he was like, yo, dude, I'm hiring. You're like, come on. I was like, sure. Yeah. And the rest is history. We worked on the product there from seed stage to post Series A and a lot of customers. It was really awesome. And now I'm at Guild. And I think the transition for my process here has been, I've learned how to build these systems. I know how things work under the hood, but a lot of companies right now struggling with just how do we then implement this? Like
Yeah.
boards are pushing all the companies. Hey, you need to have AI strategy. You need to have an AI strategy. But then it's a different thing from just pushing everybody to use ChatGPT within the company. But how do we systemize it and actually can you see the ROI coming from it? So I think that's
Mhm.
where I felt I'm at a good intersection to do both. So
Yeah.
and
Dude,
that's kind of like my journey in a nutshell now.
that's a very interesting, like you've taken me on the, the twists and turns of getting to where you are. And but the interesting thing I've learned, and even hearing your stories, it's not like careers are so linear, right? Some people just think like, oh, it's just linear. Like some people do have that. They could tell you this like step by step story of like, I knew exactly what I was going to do in my life. You know, there's something, as you said, you went through the stages of like being recruited, and then, you had this moment where they're like, oh, what are you guys working on? Wow. That's what you guys are doing with all this data. Let me go learn this thing. And as you said, even the roadblocks of now trying to interview, and people are like, but you don't have the technical, expertise. And then going like, okay, Penn State now has this thing, and they're taking, non-traditional.
Yes.
There's almost like sometimes there's persistence, but there's also, right place, right time, or just finding a way, right? How
Yes.
for you, how did you, the more you were pivoting and finding this thing, when did you start getting a sense that, what you're working on now is what maybe you've wanted to work on, in the past? Like now, at least things can change obviously in the future, but now in this state here, and how did you start getting a sense of like, oh, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. I think for me, one thing that stuck with me in the beginning, early days, I think it's something that it's innate. Maybe it started like when I decided I was going to come to the US and relentlessly pursuing that objective. And one good story for that is when I started running in Kenya, nobody in my family, at least, most families within my area, within Kaptagat, they have somebody that's a runner and they're doing pretty well. But my family tree line, nobody had ran, nobody had started running, not because they didn't want to, but nobody just never ever tried it. So I was kind of like the first one to just kind of like, I want to go to the US and the path for me is running. So when I started running, most of my aunties, most of my uncles, and even my dad was like, are you doing this for physical fitness or what? Like
Yeah.
they were like, you're not serious. They were like, dude, nobody in our family ever ran. Like we get it, but like, are you serious or are you just,
Yeah.
yeah, and for me at that time, I was like, dude, I'm actually serious. I was like, if y'all don't believe in me, I know I'm believing myself, and this is the path I want to pursue. So I remember running, and some days I would wake up in the morning, like it would be really hard to wake up because you're like, oof, I gotta wake up at 4, go for this 2-hour long run in the bushes with all these marathon runners. They would just leave me after like a mile in, and I'll just be by myself the entire time. And it's dark, and you gotta come back 2 hours later, and then you sleep for a few hours at 10. Because we're training 3 times a day, 4 in the morning, 10, and 5 in the evening. So morning would be like a long, hard run. Midday would be something like mile splits on the track, and then evening would be like a slow 5K jog, which the
Mhm.
jog is relative. It's a bit speedy. But for me, that was kind of like the opening. I would say that when my bulb went off in my mind, it was like, you really got to go after things. Like there's no, it's not going to be easy. You're just going to go after things. And then since then, it's just been like that for me. And the way I like to kind of think of it, even with all these pivots that I've made, I think one thing that stood out with me as well is I think I was listening to one of the episodes. I think Jeff Bezos was in there talking about the regret minimization strategy. You don't want to down the road. You don't want to have a lot of I should have tried that. Oh, I should have. Maybe if I did that, then my life would be like this. So I took that in my mind. I'll say, I don't know what I want to do right now, but I think I'm interested in this thing. And the moment I said I'm interested in this thing and I feel like I'm interested in it, my goal has been, can you investigate? Can you figure out if you're going to like it? Just try it and see if you like it. If you don't, you can always back out and try something else. I think it's a 2-door strategy. If there's 2 doors, just pick one. Don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. If there's 1 door, then relax and really think through it because there's one way. If it's the 2-door, you can go in this one. If it doesn't work, come out, go to the other door. So that's what it's helped me a lot. So even deciding, okay, first, maybe let's think about medical school. And then maybe not after shadowing to some doctors, maybe research, worked on research a little bit at the infectious disease lab, talked to some of the PIs, principal investigators there. And I saw how their life was. And also they explained to me, they were like, dude, our life, our salary, everything is dependent on funding. So if it goes down, we're out of our work as well. And they were like, you really got to do this if you really, really, really love it. And for me, that's when I was like, ooh, do I really, really love it? That if I don't get paid, I'm still going to do it. And that's when I was like, I probably do, but at the same time, I feel like there's a lot at stake for me. At least at this point in my life, I'm not ready to have that type of commitment. So I was like, okay, I need something that I'm going to enjoy. The way I figure out what I enjoy right now, and I feel like this is what I want to pursue, is the fact that even if I'm not working, I'm still living my phone. If you go to like the past 10 searches for the last 10 days, is something that is involved in my work. Like I'm obsessed with it. Like my social media feed, who I follow is basically that. Every conversation I have with even my friends when I go out, it's basically that. So it's like I'm living in that obsession to the point where sometimes my wife is like, do you ever have an off day? Like in your mind, I'm like, my off days when I'm asleep, like my brain is shut down. Otherwise, it's like I'm thinking about these things even when I'm just sitting. I'm still thinking. It's just obsession. I think that's what when I found that I'm super obsessed with it. Like even on my time that I call free, I'm just doing it because I think at some point my lines blurred from because when I was in the army, for example, I would know, okay, I gotta wake up, I gotta go to practice, I gotta go work, and then I gotta come home. And when I come home, I'm not thinking about work. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just on the TV. I'm just nothing. Like it's just like, oh, thank God it's Friday. Thank God it's Saturday. But with the current job that I'm in, there's none of that. I finish work. I try not to do this, but it just happens. Like your mind is already thinking about that.
Yeah.
You go on the phone, is that, and it's not even work. It's like it's really hard to distinguish the lines of kind of blurred between work and actually you just enjoy these topics, and that's when I feel like this is what I enjoy. Yeah,
I know. You know, Tony, yeah, you saying something very interesting because I feel the same way. Whether it's like me building my business or any like creative projects that I'm interested in, my projects are very like self directed, right? It's not like someone told me to write a book. It's not like someone tells me to make music. I want to do it. What I'm learning now is trying to find that balance because like you, sometimes it's hard to switch off, right? So even when the laptop is closed, my mind is still thinking like, okay, tomorrow this is what I'm going to do, or there's this other idea that I need to work on or whatever it is. And it's like, to be honest, it's always like, it's like a gift and a curse, right? Because the gift is, it doesn't sometimes feel like work because you're just going, right?
Yes.
The curse is sometimes you can't stop or you can't, you almost have to tell yourself, okay, like for instance, now, it's holiday seasons, right? Then I'm telling myself, oh, I'm going to take vacation, but it's like, really? Are you really?
Yes.
So, is now trying to find like this balance, right? And one question, as you're talking about practice and everything, there are two things I want to know. Those people you were running with, right? Waking up in the morning, going, did you get a sense that they were in their own form of obsessed with what they were doing, or were they just doing it as a way out to be like, this is a way for me economically to, get out and help my family, for instance? Or did you get that sense of, man, this person, there's that one guy that just loves this running thing. Like, he can't stop talking about it. He's always thinking about it. What was your experience with that?
Yeah, that's very interesting. There was definitely a mix. I would say a good chunk of them there's a good chunk of, I think I would segment it as, there's folks that just like, I love this. My family's been doing this. It's a family thing. My dad ran, my uncles ran, my brother runs, and this is the family thing. It's like a family business to some extent. Like it's just expectation. There's that burden of it. And that's all they know. They grew up knowing that. They grew up taking their dad to practice, watching their dad run in the morning. Some of them even ran with their dad during the morning run. So that's them and they love it. And then there's folks that they love it, but at the same time, they're doing it for the economic value. Then I think all of them is still tied to economic value, but they it started maybe off as trying to look for economic, uplift, but at the same time, it just turned into like, oh, I actually love this thing. And then
Yeah.
there's other folks who are just like, I'm just going this for the money. And if you see the folks that went in for the money, the period of lasting is not long.
It's
And
not wrong.
also the level of achievement is not, but folks that are either in the two camps of, I just love this thing versus it's money and I love it. I just happen to love it as well. Those are then that kind of work out great for them. I do have some folks that really enjoyed it. Like even when we came to college here, we ran together because we would run out the NCAA work. We would run. College would pay our tuition fees, room, and food and books and everything. Our job was to run and maintain a 3.0 GPA in college. That was the requirement. Some of the folks that I was with, for example, they ran, they graduated like we did. Some of them ended up joining the Army as well. But when they joined the Army, they went to the Army world-class athlete program, which the Army has. And basically your job is to run and compete for the Army. And they competed all the way to the Olympics. And there's one good friend of mine called Paul Chilimo, and he went and came in second in the Olympics in 5,000 meters for the US. And that's somebody that loves it. Right now, he's transitioned to marathon. He has a YouTube channel now, and he's all the day his content is just running content. He just loves it. He also comes from we went to the same high school in Kenya, and we all come
Interest.
up from the same region. Yeah. So it's for me, I'm like, I know he loves it.
Yeah.
That's a person that loves what he's doing. That's an example of it. And for me, I think it was more of a means to an end. It's not, and you can see from what I told you, nobody in my family ever ran. So I didn't have that, like somebody from the family that did this, that I'm okay. No.
Yeah.
But I have neighbors. I have a lot of friends around that I saw them running. My goal was I want to go there to help me with education.
Mm-hmm.
Running will help me get educated. And that was
Yep.
kind of my means there. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice, man. And you did say something like, waking up, going for those runs, being left behind, and you're like, this thing's hard, right? Almost like the light bulb of anything you want to do, there's going to be some hardship. And, to be honest, personally, I'm trying to even shift my mindset of like, oh, things have to be hard or whatever it is. But the reality is, I have friends that like want to run their own business or whatever it is. And they're like, man, I want to come run my business. I'm like, hey, feel free to come run a business. Like, it's hard, right?
Yes.
Having a corporate job too is hard. Being a parent is hard. Being single is hard. I'm like, just choose whatever hard you want, like, and just stick with it, right? And
Yeah.
through some of my conversations on this podcast, one thing that has been coming around was someone saying this, like, helping people learn how to do hard things, right? And I feel like we're in this era where, there's this constant need for like a dopamine hit of and I mean, guilty of it, of like, whether it's like scrolling on social media, whether you're posting stuff and you want immediate response, or whether you're building something, like I'm building something here and I'm like, yo, this thing needs to work. Come on, right? But I'm also learning, the hard way of, okay, there's a process to posting to online to eventually build trust. There's a process to building agentic systems that actually work. It's hard, but I'm learning how to do these hard things. Where, as an educator yourself, right? When in this era where students can easily get answers from Gen AI, what does your job become in terms of trying to teach them stuff? Like, what do you see as your job? Is that helping them get through hard things, helping them get that mindset? Is that part of it, or is there something more?
Yeah, I think there's something more to that as well. Things have become easy, like you've noted. Yeah, these days you don't have to think. We've kind of offloaded our thinking to the models. It's like, yeah, I don't have to think. You think for me, and then I synthesize, and then I let you think again, and become like a thought partner, right? And it's great, it's helping, but at the same time, I feel like the fundamentals are getting eroded to some extent. People are not trying to dig deeper into specific things, but that could be argued the other way too. With these agents and LLMs now, they allow people to dig deeper into things that they would have previously had to pay for a course or go find a video about something or read a book, which it's in itself, there's a lot of friction to like getting to that point. Whereas this, you just ask it a question, it just does digging for you and surfaces like the easiest way for you to learn. You're like, I understand this now. I don't understand this. Explain a little bit. Let's go back. You can go on tangents and then come back and out, in and out. So I think my biggest role as an educator, from the way I would think about it, is how do I then teach these learners how to do that? Even like as a third partner, how to use an LLM, an agent as a third partner, instead of just kind of depending on it purely on like, I'm just going to depend on you to tell me everything that you know about this, and I'm just going to sit there and kind of like digest it. I think the goal is know something, understand a little bit of it, and then be able to ask questions to expand how you're thinking about it and make you more holistic. It's more of like it fills in the gaps that you would initially in the past would have had to grab a book, read it for a couple of days, and probably you're reading stuff that is not even contributing because books are dense. And they will take you on tangents that you're like, this is exactly what I want to learn. Yeah.
Stories and all that might not be necessary.
Exactly. Yes. And the point is like on page 205,
Yeah.
So with LLMs, I think is like teaching people how do I use it in the most effective way to help me be better at what I'm trying to do. And I think for educators, I think that's where things are going. Be kind of like the curator of helping them understand, okay, this is how you need to be thinking about solving this problem. And I think the other thing here as well is just there's the tools. So I like to think of this AI and LLMs. These are just tools. But at the end of the day, it's like, what are you trying to solve or help others make their work easier, make your work easier, make others' lives better in the grand scheme of things? And so thinking about how this becomes like your thought partner and how you help it kind of help you get to where you're going. So that's where currently I'm thinking in terms of just helping folks rather than yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, do you have a particular way that you create conditions for someone to discover something they didn't know they needed to learn, right? One thing I learned from working with a lot of DevRels, a lot of AI educators is, you want to give people that aha moment. Like, oh, now I know. Okay, now I know why this thing is important. How have you thought about creating those moments for people?
Yeah, so I think has to be a few things. First of all, is the environment. Do they feel safe, and do they feel there's a sweet spot where they have a playground where they can experiment safely without really causing any issues for them or for the system or for anybody else that you're using it. So once they have that room space and safety, oh, I can actually play with this thing here, and I'm not gonna have any problems. So you as an educator have to set those constraints. Like, okay, this is the constraints of the system, and then you play within this space. And then the other thing is, once that is there, it's actually helping them by giving them more like hard problems to solve within that environment as well. It's like, okay, you now understand there's this place where you can play, but here's a problem that I want you to start thinking about. Start resolving this problem using this tool within this environment to solve this issue. And that in itself, I think the core part of this is to go back to critical thinking. How do you, and I think this is more important now, even with AI, the more critically you think, the more you're able to because when I even give talks, one thing that I've been mentioning a lot is we have tools now that are so powerful that the main limiting factor right now is just our imagination. If you have an idea and think of it today, you can build it literally almost within a day. Claude Code is here. It can build a website for that idea. Linking to Stripe, building the product, hooking it up and putting it out there for people to use is so easy now than ever before. So the biggest thing is the idea. Maybe start looking at your experiences. What am I doing currently that it annoys me that I could build and like make it useful to help me? And then there's probably somebody else somewhere that is running through the same problem and finding those people and marketing to them and getting that product out there as well. So I think my lenses have shifted to let's go back to problem solving. So I think topics like philosophy is becoming very important right now than how it's been in the past.
Yeah. And it's funny you said that because that's actually even why for me, I'm even asking these questions and doing these, interviews because obviously I know I've been around a lot of problem solvers, a lot of people building stuff, and you just like there are no limits to what we can solve now or the tools we can use, and there are a lot of big problems. So it's now, how do we solve it? What's the approach we're using and why? And having conversations about what is actually important to solve their big problems, inequality, climate, whatever it is. So how do you then choose? So, just 3 more questions if you have the time. In this, I feel like the AI space in the last 2 years has become very noisy. Like, man, finally came out. Great. Then Claude Code. My God, I need to get on Claude Code. My God, what's the next one? Well, before Claude Code was, better start using Cursor or Windsurf. Then
Yes.
Claude around, and then are you using Warp? And then the next one you
Codex.
and then you just keep going, you just keep going, just keep going. And if you're not careful, you can find yourself like feeling like you're always behind, right? How do you stay aligned with your taste and your values in what you want to do in such a noisy environment?
Yeah, that's a good question that I still also am looking for best answers there. But I think the way I like to think of it is going back to what you said, values, right? And I think that's the most important topic. I think figuring out what are your values, what do you enjoy doing, and how does this new technologies that come out then shape how that changes and how you approach that. I think everybody within every role currently right now in the world, any job really, there's one way or another that AI is affecting that in a good way, I think, as well as in a risky way. For example, support. If you're working in support, customer support, then there's
Mhm.
currently a lot of issues there in terms of it's getting better. The voice models are getting much better and they get to a point where it needs to be steered. So I think the biggest thing that I think about is, for example, if you're support, you need to learn how this systems work in a sense, not even the technical details, but how does it work? How is it doing what I'm doing as a human? Where is it falling short? How can I help it you become like the thought partner for it? Because it still needs evals and you are the evaluator. And so
Exactly.
that's still a job. You still, if you do good at that, then you're really good at doing this manually. So you're the expert in this case. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
when these technologies are changing so frequently, I also try to calibrate myself. Well, this is changing. How is that changing how I do stuff now? For DevRel, LLMs and AI can generate content now. They can write blogs, but they don't write great blogs. They like
Mhm.
okay blogs.
Okay.
So maybe I just take all the blogs I've written, feed it to it so it knows how I write, and then we explore a topic together with the LLM. We just spar. I just tell it, okay, here's a thought I have, and then it tells me, goes does some research, gives me the thoughts of what, and then I give him my counter arguments of why I think the current thinking system is wrong, and this is how I'm thinking about it. And then it synthesizes that with me, and I tell it, can you critique me if you were a subject expert of this topic? And it just gives me the critique and then I enrich my thought process. And at the end of it, I come up with something solid at the same time. So it's like,
Mhm.
it's just another partner that you didn't have that's there with you all the time. And for me, the way that's shaped my thinking is more of like, I see this as an abundance thing more than it's reading me off some stuff. It's definitely making me better in some sense because people have argued it's making people dumber. I get it. If you fully rely on it in a different, I think there's a skill issue and usage issue here as well. But to begin with, if you're just relying on it purely and just like telling it, write me a blog about this X, and it just does it and you just get it and you post it, that
Yeah.
is the AI slop we don't want.
Yep.
I think it's like the third partner and given your own taste. And I think the taste part is what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? I think you have to be very thoughtful on that aspect. Be open with what your internal thinking is. Like I don't disagree. I disagree with this because of this, and make those beliefs known and let it dispute your beliefs. It also helps you actually understand yourself better because you're like I disagree with this, but then if you counterpoints that maybe makes you realize actually actually I'm wrong or I'm right
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
yeah
exactly.
yeah because if you just let it be your yes man or yes device just says yes to you, it will do that very very well.
You can definitely be a huge yes man in life. I was watching this documentary about this designer, and he was talking about one of his mentors, and he said they'll go on like long walks through the woods, through the city, and that mentor always would point at like houses or buildings, and they'll say, "Tell me one thing you like and one thing you don't like about this building," right? And the more he did that, he was creating his own taste or even being able to like articulate his taste, right? And that made me think like, oh, that's very interesting. Like it's like a practice I would like to do because we kind of do it internally. For instance, you read a book and you're like, I like the book because of this, but I don't like it because of this. And everybody has their taste. Do you have a way of like, do you have a ritual or things you do to kind of bring meaning to your life when things start to kind of feel blurry? Do you have a practice, a way you think about things?
Rituals, yes. So for me, I don't know if I have a few. I probably have some. Most of these are, like you say, innate. You don't even spend time thinking about it. But I
Mm-hmm.
think some of these are formed from just childhood experiences as well. Like, things have changed. Maybe regulations have changed about a certain topic that you disagree with. But then how do you adapt to it? How do you just coexist within that environment? So for me, it's become more it also challenges some of the notions I had in the past, especially I would say most Africans, the way things are shaped in our continent, the way our cultures, because we come from a culture that's more rigid, and then come here, things are kind of loosey in a sense. There's no specific really. It's mostly guided by regulations, how people think about specific things. Because there's really cultural, because you could boil down even to the tribe level, yeah, and then the
Yep.
country level. There's still big differences within all those cultures. So I've had to tune off some of the things that over there is huge, but here it's a little different. So I think for me, it's more of looking at when something new changes. Like, for example, AI came around, and the first thing is like, oh wow, it's gonna do this to my life, it's gonna change this, I'm not gonna have to do this. Well, does that then make me relevant at my job? Then how do I adapt to it? So I think for me, the way I like to look at it usually is from a sense of just myself thinking, okay, this has changed, how do I stay okay with things that have changed? So I think always learning is always my thing for to kind of keep myself sane. It's like, this thing has come out, I just want to learn about it. I want to learn about it, understand it, and understand how it's changing me. And that's one thing to just kind of keep me afloat and sane. And then just also leveraging everybody around me. What are you, how do you think about this topic? I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
about it this way. How do you think about it? And I think
Yeah.
that helps me get grounded a little bit, because thinking for yourself is great, but at the same time, there's that this silo thing, like you just sit in a silo. Like, I think a good example is even right now with AI. I think there's something with just being within that group of people. For example, Bay Area folks. Yeah, y'all think this is how the entire world is operating,
Yep.
but then you move out of there. It's like ChatGPT. Some folks is still a foreign concept,
Like,
and
what?
you're like, what? Exactly. So I think there's there's that aspect. I try to break out the dot bubble and like get some grounding a little bit on what's going on as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a perfect example for sure. Building in isolation. For you, how does building technology shape your sense of purpose or contribution to others or to the world?
There's a direct correlation, especially right now within AI. Things that we're building right now are helping people. I think a good examples of stuff that are out there right now is even with Neuralink, for example. Things have changed a lot. You've seen people that were not able to perform tasks, just being able to do stuff and enjoy life. And I think the main purpose was on this planet really is, how do we make everybody else's lives better in a sense? And better is relative as well. How do we just make people enjoy the little things they need to enjoy rather than suffer, or at least reduce suffering in a sense as well? And so for me, when I think about that, is how can I, even at the smaller scale, somebody that works at a company, how do I help them do their job more efficiently? They're tired of clicking these different buttons on these different screens. How do I then make their life easy? Just like, maybe this thing can run on a schedule, and then they can start thinking about other things that could be more beneficial. Maybe it even relieves them time to actually go learn about this AI thing, right? Because they've gained some extra hour a day from what they were doing to actually go learn about this thing, or even just not do anything as well. That's still a form of benefit. So my point of view is like, how can I make this better for folks? And then not only that, how can I help them understand it by just the teaching aspect of it? Because it's one thing to just kind of do it and then they just, okay, it's great, it's working, but then what? So I think there's that aspect of it works, and then teaching as well. So for me, I find really great satisfaction from doing both of those as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even for me, what you just said really resonates because you sometimes when you're searching for purpose, you're almost like looking around, like, should I do this or that? I remember reading a book by this, I forgot his name, Yuval Harari. He was talking about something about the 21st century, 21 lessons. And one thing he said was just reduce suffering. Like, that's a clear thing that you can actually focus on because everybody's suffering in their own way. But if you can reduce collective suffering, that's actually like a straight up goal, right? So you don't have to think about like the multiple ways, just find your ways to contribute to that. So my last question for you, and this is kind of like a playful question that I've been asking everybody, right? So if the world went, dystopian, and dystopian is we're all here working for the machines, we don't have agency. We're reporting to them. They're the higher lords at this point, controlled maybe by a few people. Or we go to a utopian world where we have friendly AI, we have trustworthy AI. It's doing all the work for us. Then we just have to sit back and try to figure out how we enjoy life, right? Everybody's taken care of. As you said, there's abundance of resources being used. Maybe there's some kind of like universal basic income. Maybe nobody is hustling to do that. So you have these two situations, dystopian or utopian, right? You have to choose one. You have to choose one, right? One of those situations. And then you tell me, what would your daily practice be in either of those, in this situation that you choose between dystopian or utopian?
Wow, that's a really interesting question in itself. So picking one, oof. I think my answer will cut through both.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not an option, but I think I'm going to add a third option for all in this case. And I think one thing that I would focus on specifically is skills. And I'm going to use skills as leverage in this case. Because in a dystopian society or a utopian society, everything is there already. Everything is great. Everything works as it should. And in a dystopian society, I have to make things work because just necessity is there. So the basic thing that I would think about is continuously learning useful skills that are portable, that I can use it in different ways. So I think things like communication, mediation, because dystopian, there's going to be conflicts everywhere and just kind of chaos everywhere. How can I learn that? It's maybe even me being a bridge between the new AI overloads and the regular humans, which now sees us as just like dummies. Maybe I can be the mediator between the two, right? There's like, the machines are like, we're so advanced, like you guys are, but I'm like, look,
we need something to, do the translation. Tony's like,
exactly. Or I can learn and be really good at fixing a specific component of them that they're like, okay, we rely on you because you're cheaper, but you know how to fix this thing, like you go do it, right? So I'm still useful in a sense. Or even food, like growing food, right? Like maybe the machines are like, we don't want to do that. It's mundane work. It's just somebody can do it. You're human and you can do it. We don't pay you, just go do it.
Mm-hmm.
So learning those, I think that can contribute in good times and also, keep me alive in the bad times as well.
Yeah.
So in good times, even learning to grow food in a utopian society, that's still great. It keep me alive. It would just help everybody else. But at the same time, in a bad condition, it will keep me alive and others alive as well. So it kind of lets me contribute in both. And I think of the skills more of as a stored option value, like options in the company. That's a stored option that I'm putting it in. And I can accumulate a lot of those skills. Since it's easy, AI is there for, learning it is not the problem. It's really, how much of that do you want to amass and learn about? So I think I would focus purely in just kind of acquiring a lot of these skills and then storing them. And then it can help me throughout that entire aspect of it. The other thing is really community mindset here. And this is just like the regular checking in on people. I think that's very important, of course, like checking in on people, resolving conflicts. It goes back to communication aspect of it and kind of like knowledge sharing as well. And these will cut across the machines and the humans as well. So it's kind of really being there and understanding how each one of those work, because the difference really is more of like the isolation and a function of like mutual aid within the network of humans and the machines when that works out. So if I was to say two things, is amassing a whole bunch of skills and then putting community first. I think those are the two things that will do to survive in both environments.
For sure. Hey, Tony, man, thank you very much for your time. I really like how you ended it there. There's something big there about community that I'm hearing from a lot of people, and definitely picking up the skills of just keep learning, right? Just keep learning, keep going. So I really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you very much for your time and for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
For sure, for sure. Thank you.